If you look online for recipes on how to juice pumpkins, you'll see all kinds of things like baking them first, boiling them, pushing them through cheesecloths, running them through blenders. You know what? Forget all about those recipes. Hi, it's Dan with eujuicers.com, and I'm going to show you why juicing pumpkins just straight in a juicer is the best way to go. Now, that gives you raw pumpkin juice, which has the highest nutritional content. Pumpkins are considered a superfood. They're loaded with things like vitamin A, vitamin C. They have insoluble fiber. They're just all around really good for you. And they're also tasty too. And we're filming this in the middle of September. There's just a chill in the air. The leaves are starting to turn brown. And that means it's time for pumpkins and pumpkin juicing. Pumpkins are getting really popular. Not so much like celery, but you'll see them especially in things like coffee drinks, things like that, but even for juicing. Now, what I have here is a recipe for pumpkin juice with apples. You can drink pumpkin juice on its own. It's sweet enough typically, something like carrot juice, but it really goes well with a few things here. So what do you need to make pumpkin juice? Well, you need a juicer, and in this case, just about any juicer will work. High-speed juicers, as I always say, if you make juice in there, be sure to drink it right away, especially because this recipe has apples in it, and apples will oxidize really fast. The juice will turn brown, it'll get foamy. So if you use a high-speed juicer, drink it right away. If you're using a slow juicer, like this Sauna 727 Supreme, you can store it for up to 48 hours. So besides a juicer, what do you need? Well, you need what I have here. I have 4 ingredients: pumpkin, apples, cinnamon, and vanilla. And you're gonna want a sweet small pumpkin, typically a Hokkaido pumpkin. That's what this is. My wife and I love pumpkins. Our garden has about 25 pumpkins right now on the vine ripening all over the place. And I just picked these 2 today. I also just picked these apples off our apple tree today. And in terms of apples, normally I suggest Granny Smith apples. That's because they are very tart. They have a high juice content. They don't oxidize. But for this recipe, I would not recommend that. They're a little too tart. You want something sweeter. You can use a typical fall apple. I don't even know what variety this is. This tree's been growing in our house before we bought it, but these are just, we call them sweet fall apples. You could also use red delicious apples, anything that's sweet, even a little softer. It just complements the flavor of the pumpkin really well. Besides that, in this recipe, all I have is cinnamon. I'll put in just a dash of cinnamon. It goes really well with pumpkin. You could also add nutmeg if you like. And I have vanilla. This is just homemade vanilla. We make this at home. We have big bottles. You basically get a bottle of bourbon, load it up with about 20 vanilla beans, and let them soak for a few months. This one's been soaking about 6 months. And I'll just add about a half a teaspoon or so to the juice. Again, it complements it really well. So I've got everything. You'll want to prepare the pumpkin just like you'd prepare it for anything else, for cooking or baking anything. You just slice it open, scoop out the seeds, and then peel off or cut off this hard skin, which leaves you something like this. Again, this is a Hokkaido. I just picked this morning. These tend to be sweeter and a bit juicier. But you can also use a bigger pumpkin, a jack-o'-lantern pumpkin. It just won't be as sweet and maybe not quite as juicy. So I'll go ahead and start. The Sauna 727 comes with a few different screens, a coarse screen and a fine screen. I'm going to use the fine juicing screen. That gives the most yield. And halfway through, I'll cut up these apples and I'll throw them in there. You can alternate the pumpkins and the apples. The apples will go through a bit slower. Pumpkins will go through faster. You can also add carrots if you felt like it. That'll kind of add an interesting flavor to the juice as well. So I'll get started with the pumpkin. So it's done here. It's interesting. I juiced this yesterday on my Sauna 707 with a Hokkaido pumpkin from a different plant, and it really juiced differently. This one juiced thicker. It looked a little pulpier, and the one I juiced yesterday was thinner, almost more like carrot juice. So I'm curious to see how this tastes. I'll take this out, close the juice flap to keep from any drips. And what I'll do is add a little bit of the cinnamon. I'd say about maybe a quarter teaspoon. You know, a little cinnamon goes a long way, maybe even an eighth of a teaspoon. Something like that is enough to start with. And I'll stir it in. I'll also put in, I'd say about a teaspoon of the vanilla, maybe a half a teaspoon. And then just stir it up. You notice a little foam on top? That is from the apples, especially these soft summer apples. It's a pretty thick juice. Like I said, this particular pumpkin juiced a lot thicker, creamier, which could be really good actually. So I'm gonna try it out and see. Yeah, really different. Really thick and creamy, but not bad. The pulp, it's not pulpy, it's just, well, you can kind of see, it's just thick. It's dense, almost like a pumpkin milkshake. But again, it's just pumpkins and apples. I actually like it a lot, especially with the cinnamon and the vanilla. Yesterday, when I tested this at home, I did this same recipe, and then I also did the same recipe with carrots, and just to get more juice volume and to taste it. I liked it with the carrots a lot, but I set it out as a blind taste test for my wife, and she actually preferred just this recipe, only pumpkin and apple. So it seems that the pumpkin will vary because the juicing technology in the 727 is the same as the 707. Actually, it juices it even a little better because of the variable speed motor and this pulp blade that squeezes a bit more juice. But either way, I'm really happy with this. This is a hearty drink. This will really fill a person up with that pulp, that insoluble fiber. So I hope you liked this video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I always read them and I always answer every question you write. So that should do it. I'm Dan with EUJuicers.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.